Welcome to another episode of the Roundtable. And as we're beginning to get into the holiday season, I think this episode is going to be really fitting for a lot of people who are deciding to take that holiday break. And when things start to happen, we could talk about what to expect when you do take a bit of training off, or even the struggle when you are trying to fit training in during this holiday period. So I guess let's open things up. What you can expect if you do take time off of training, right? Because for the most of us, holidays is generally the busiest time of the year. You've got family commitments, friend commitments, and I think time is the valuable asset that starts to get shorter and shorter, right? And sometimes for some people, depending on how much they value training, training becomes the thing that needs to fall to the wayside, right? Um, what kind of experience have you guys seen in terms of, what you've experienced in the past, both yourselves and what you've seen in previous years when it comes to holiday periods?
I guess like everyone's going to be a little bit different depending on, like you said, their commitment to training. So I guess if you are wanting to change your training around, being able to communicate that early to your coach, and then you can kind of develop a plan from there rather than, not communicating and then things kind of falling through, and then your coach trying to look at your training and be like, what's going on, but not sure what's going on. So being able to be on the same page as your coach, I think, is really important. That way you can kind of navigate it easily, and reduce the unnecessary stress that comes with this time of the year, I guess.
Yeah. Dave, anything to add there?
Yeah, I guess like the way that I kind of look at things is basically you touched on it briefly as well, but it's sort of like how important training is to you. Once you sort of decide that, you can start breaking things up into like, I guess, non-negotiables and sort of like what becomes flexible. So if you're someone that says like training is a must, I'm going to get everything done no matter what, then you're going to be shifting your holiday plans, your family plans around your training and not the other way around, most likely. But then it starts to sort of go down in tiers. So you might be like, okay, like I'm definitely still going to hit all my training, but maybe I'm just not going to do all my extra bodybuilding work just for this week between Christmas and New Year's, just because I don't have the time. So looking at what's non-negotiable. So maybe it's like, okay, I'm going to go do my squat and bench and my rows, but I'm going to, maybe skip out on the lat raises and the bicep curls because, Granny's got a lunch on today or whatever. So I think it comes down to like, what you want out of your training, how seriously you take it, and then finding a way to work around that. So whether it's changing the sessions like that where you cut out accessories, or maybe it's merging days together. So if you have a squat only day and a bench only day, instead of training 5 or 6 days a week, it's like, cool, let's train 3 or 4, still get all your frequency done of your lifts. But maybe it's just different training days. You've sort of blended them together. And then that's sort of like your compromise there as you still get training in, but it's less time, less days, that sort of thing. So those are sort of like my general approaches is figuring out what you want, whether it's, you'll find a sack training or no training sacked at all. And then from there, devise a plan around, what your negotiables are and what your non-negotiables are, and then sort of set up, a way to get that done.
Yeah, you cover that really well. And I think it's easier when you are coming from that place where you are committed to training. But obviously not everyone's like that, right? And I think us as coaches, it's our job to kind of get everyone through this period as best as possible. For those that are still committed to training in the past, I think one logistical challenge that poses a threat is like, all right, I'm committed to training, I still want to do it, but then you find out that your gyms aren't even open, right? So during this period of time, pending what kind of gym you're from, whether it's like a community-based gym, private gym, sometimes they might not be open during that period of time. So it's very well worth thinking of, where am I at? What's the opening hours of this place so I can still get my work in? And if not, you really need to plan ahead to be able to find a place that you can train. I, for one, have found in the past, there's been periods of time where it's like I didn't have access to that and it then screwed with my training on the day. But it's very helpful to have those 24-hour kind of gyms where you can just go in whenever you want and do that, right? I think us being in powerlifting gyms for a lot of our time, we kind of take that for granted. But if you are coming from a situation where you do need to think ahead logistically. That's really important as well.
Yeah, I think as well, like if you are someone that keeps consistent training days, actually changing the days is not the end of the world, especially if you're not like in a comp prep or anything like that. Just being able to auto regulate, I guess, either side of the days that you may need to change, and everything will be fine. Like, yeah, I guess just not stressing out that you have to, make some small changes, and everything, yeah, will end up being fine.
Yeah. I want to play around a bit, and I think we've got this picture of someone in our mind who's, got this balance and they've got commitments. I want to kind of take it to the extreme, and you've got someone who either A, is fully committed to training and is willing to do whatever. And I've been in that similar position before where it's like Dave touched on, family commitments kind of get pushed to the wayside. And I guess the feelings that come with that, for me especially, used to be like a lot of guilt, training, things like that. And then you've also got the other camp where it's like, perhaps other things take precedence, where you're going on holiday with family, they don't have a spot to train at, right? So we could kind of discuss what kind of goes through the minds of like these two types of commitment levels. Starting off with the camp where you are a bit more committed to training and it is serious. You might have a competition that's coming up in 4 weeks or so, right? You never know. And I think during this period of time, it's especially easy to get caught up feeling guilty when you do feel like you want to commit to training, especially because everyone's gathering around and it's a public agreement that it's like, this time's very closely associated with family time, friend time, right? And you're taking away from that. I think if you are in this situation, it's important to be grateful that it's like you're privileged enough to be in this position where you can still push in a competition and you're, training for something, right? It's something that's temporary, and if it matters to you, you need to get the work done. But it's just being grateful that there is this avenue that you can push it. And despite feeling guilty, that's almost inevitable in this situation. But I think, when all's said and done, you're hopefully still going to have family, friends around you that love you. So, as long as you've got that in mind so that it doesn't put you in a spiral, I think that's really helpful for those kind of people in that camp.
I think that being able to communicate to like your family and friends early and let them know that like this is something that's really important to you and like you have this commitment, so they should then have respect for you to go and do that. And then it kind of takes the stress off you rather than being like, oh, I need to go and do this, even though, I should be, with family or friends. If they already know that this is something that you're doing and they can respect that, then there shouldn't be an issue, I guess.
Yeah, to
Yeah.
add to that as well, I guess there is a middle ground, or there is like a way that you can compromise as well. So if you train, 12 till 3 or something like that during the middle of the day, you don't have to continue training at 12 till 3. You can still get your training done, whether that's before the event or after the event or whatever the case may be. You can make compromises yourself while still sticking to your training, whether it's, same days, not missing a session, not missing an exercise. It might just be that, okay, instead of training at 12 in the middle of the day, you wake up, you go train at 7 or whatever, and then nothing's really changed. You just have to train a little bit earlier, and maybe you have less food or water in you, but that's a small compromise that you can make that still lets you get all your training done, stick to your competition plan, all that sort of stuff, but still have time for family and the events that you want to get to, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, well said. And I guess we could kind of play around with the other end of the extreme, right? What to expect if you are taking just straight off cessation of training for out of the gym, right? For these kinds of people, it's kind of normal to expect that when you do come back, there is going to be that detraining period. Training is going to feel a little bit rougher than where you left off, no matter, whether you ended on PRs and you pushed it really hard, or, you were kind of just cruising through, then you had a break. So, and I think this kind of applies generally for whenever anyone takes time off, right? Like for yourself, Leanne, you took some time off after Romania, is that correct?
Yeah, I had about 2 weeks off. So it definitely took some time to regain the momentum into training. Like when I got onto the bar the first time after 2 weeks, it was like, whoa, this feels really heavy. And I guess that's normal. So just being able to have patience with it rather than just like trying to load up, what you were hitting, a few weeks ago or whatever. Just, yeah, let it kind of come back slowly. And yeah, not forcing load onto the bar.
Yeah, I think it's really, I guess it's difficult accepting that it's like, I can't believe this has happened. I can't believe this is happening, right? And I, for one, can imagine for myself, like I'm really stubborn in that sense. So it's like, man, I can't believe I've gotten so much weaker. But it does come back quicker than the time it took for you to gain it in the first place. I guess then we could also talk about the things that also kind of happen during this holiday period, whether that's like eating a bit more, you're moving more or less, and how that can kind of play a part. I know obviously Shania's not here, so um, as coaches, we could kind of paint with a broader stroke, but obviously if activity levels changing, food options are changing as well. What do you guys kind of picture happening in terms of training, and whether that's I guess even important or something that you need to consider?
Okay,
I
I
guess
guess.
like, yeah, you go. Sorry.
Okay, I think we're probably gonna say the same thing maybe. So, something along the lines of like where my head goes immediately is, do you have a competition coming up, and is making weight an issue? If so, you're gonna have to be a lot more strict with, making sure your nutrition's still in check. So not, overeating, maybe making more sensible choices. Like, if you're at a family Christmas lunch or whatever, and there's 4 desserts, it's like, cool, you don't have to have every dessert, dude. That's fine. Just small things like that would be like the first thing I would look at is weight an issue? Are you competing soon, etc. And then after that, I'm just going to be thinking about, okay, this is, one time a year. I'm not going to stress about it too much. I don't think, you should either. Like provided you're not, going overboard and completely throwing things out the window, and your protein goes down to like 50 grams a day or whatever the case may be. Like as long as you're not an idiot about it, then I'm saying that's fine. It's only going to be, a couple events, and then it's going to be back to normal in the new year again anyway. And if you have put on a little bit of weight over Christmas, it's fairly easy to hop into a small deficit in the new year and just get right back to where you were. And, you're pretty much, back to baseline and all as well. So again, I probably think that it lines up with training. So if you are eating the extra calories and potentially putting on weight, you can probably use that to your advantage if you are still training around this time of year. And then if you're not, you're probably going to just be enjoying yourself regardless. So don't make yourself feel guilty, for eating food around this Christmas time, because it is going to be fairly easy just to sort of, strip that back in the new year when you've got the time to do so.
Yeah,
Yeah, if you're
I
someone
think
that's bulking, if you're bulking, like use it. It's so much
Yeah.
easier because there's food right in front of you rather than having to like force it and it's all delicious. So yeah, and then your training is going to feel great as well. So it's kind of a win-win.
yeah, at some point you could also use the holidays to your advantage. People that are in a surplus, it's like you're cheering.
Go crazy.
Yeah. I think Shania pointed out in a post not too long ago, like, I think this thinking of all or nothing is really important as well, right? And I think that's where most of the problems come from that we've been discussing here. It's like struggling to find this middle ground where you can compromise between your own commitments to training, and it's very individual to you and it's important to you, and trying to reconcile it with family time and friend time, right? But like Dave touched on, and I think this might recap things, but it's like, if you can find this compromise, it's going to be a temporary period of time in the year. It's not always going to be like this, right? And especially for those that train 52 weeks a year and they're heavily committed, 1 week of extra food slash surplus slash time pressure isn't going to make or break a prep, right? And even for those that are in that short window where they are close to a competition, I think they're the ones that I guess you could say have like the highest risk of possible adverse effects. But that being said, as long as you plan ahead and acknowledge what kind of pressures are coming at you when you are going through this period of time, you'll be able to get through it without too much of a dramatic effect.
Yeah, there's workarounds, right? Like just go for a walk. Like, you might be at, someone's house, there's a backyard, go for a walk, get your steps up. You can slightly offset some of that food if you keep your activity up. So instead of just lounging around all day on the couch or whatever, watching the cricket, if that's what you're into, then you can sort of, take active measures and approaches to start trying to, I guess, even out things. That might be swinging one way on the pendulum.
Yeah, for sure.
I think the more years that like you're powerlifting, the easier it becomes to managing like this time of the year as well. So it's like, the first time, whether like you've started with a coach this year or first year in powerlifting, it might feel like a bit daunting because like you're so used to structure, and then now it's like this time of the year there's less structure, which can sometimes be like quite scary for some people. So yeah, that you get better at managing it for sure. Like you figure out strategies that work best for you.
Yeah, I could definitely add to that from personal experience, like past, couple years or a few years ago, I remember like I'd leave family events halfway through because it was like, I need to start training now. And uh, looking back, I think not that I would have changed anything, but that's all I would have known, right? Like sticking to the structure, getting the training in because I know that's what makes me strong. But that's opened up like what I actually value as well, aside from just powerlifting, we are all human and that's okay. But at the same time, as I've started to notice the rhythm of like what this situation needs, which is like actual time management skills around those events that pop up, that's where things get less stressful unnecessarily. Yeah, I think we'll wrap things up. This will be coming around holiday time, so happy holidays, everyone. Stay safe, and if you have listened to this, hopefully you do apply some of these things. So then, stress is down, training's up, and you enjoy time with family and friends. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.